Welcome back to another Neuroglancer protocol update video. Today, we're going to clear up some miscommunications from the previous video, which has been taken down, and we're going to answer the clarifying questions to the best of our abilities and to give you guys the tools you need to succeed when using the ripped area tag. So let's read through the protocol update together. Then I have a few examples, and we'll wrap up. So the ripped area tag is used when the cell leaves or enters from the edge of the data set, or when a break occurs at an area of ripped or torn data. But only mark ripped area cells backbone proofread if they enter or leave the data set, not if they break at an area of ripped or torn data. Ripped area tag is not used when the cell is can't trace to soma, whether the cell leaves the brain or not. So that's an important distinction there. And the can't trace to soma tag is also going to be part of this update, which I'll touch on now. This tag will receive the backbone proofread label going forward. So when you find yourself tagging a cell as can't trace to soma, please remember to go to BankBot and submit that cell with its backbone proofread label. Moving on, the important note here to reiterate for the ripped area tag, since this one can be a little confusing, neurons tagged ripped area only receive backbone proofread label if the ripped area occurs where the neuron leaves or enters the dataset. If the rip is inside the brain, the neuron is tagged ripped area, but does not receive the backbone proofread label. So, one last time, can't trace to soma, we give that a backbone proofread label. Fairly simple. Ripped area is only going to be getting the backbone proofread label if that rip is occurring where the neuron leaves or enters the data set. So let's jump into some of these examples, and hopefully this will help clarify the new protocol. Let's take a look. So here we have some examples that I curated. Got the brain mesh and peripheral nerve layer loaded up. Also have another annotation layer where I've laid down some points. And we can take a look at these ripped area examples. So here we have two neurons going into the central tear area. As you can see, there's some neurons on the other side doing the same thing from that direction. And if we take a look at the 2D and zoom out, it becomes quite clear. This is quite the tear, quite the rip. And these neurons, if we zoom in, as you can see, this is, it's just not feasible to trace. But unlike the neurons leaving the dataset, these neurons are not leaving the dataset. So theoretically, if the data was perfect here, they would be traceable all the way to the other side. So going back to the 3D, we can imagine that this purple and this yellow segment could, in a perfect world, go through here and maybe appear on this side. Probably not as this one or that one. That would be really lucky. But as one of the ones over here. And that is why we are not going to be labeling these backbone proofread, because the rest of their backbone is still on the table in this area over here, and same with these. So these two, let's take a look at the 2D once it starts to load again. I'll do a refresh. As you can see, we have the same situation, but from the opposite direction. And if we zoom in, you can actually see that this example is a neurite that has a few extra branches. And it is probably a similar cell type to this cell, but we don't have the rest of that cell. It's actually a ripped area on both sides. So luckily, the person who traced this yellow one was able to find a connection, which good on them. Excellent work. That was probably really hard. I could not find this green segment. And if you're wondering, is this a can't fix or is this a ripped area? That's a fair worry. And what I will say is that it's okay to label it ripped area, and it's also okay to label it can't fix. In this situation, neither of these segments would receive the backbone proofread label in BankBot, so labeling it ripped area or can't fix is not going to cause any issues. All right, so those are the ripped area examples in which we do not label them backbone proofread. Let's take a look at some examples where we do, so that we can better understand the difference. So let's open up the brain mesh again here. Might have to wait a moment for it to load. As it does, I will refresh since we just deselected some things. All right, and one thing you're going to notice is they all leave the brain or enter from the brain. Depends which way they're going. But they all go through this egress, and let's take a look at what that looks like. This is a ripped area. It is a peripheral nerve, and we don't have this part of the data set. So this cell falls under the ripped area tag, and oh snap, we have to reload. You can't plan these things. So this neuron is leaving the data set, and it's in a ripped area, or leaving or entering, depending on whether the axons or dendrites are inside or not, I believe. So it looks fairly complete. I can't see any backbone that looks suspiciously missing. So very good. This perpendicular branch is probably, well, it's suspicious to me, but there's another one over here. So maybe that's just the way the cell goes. But just a general look looks pretty good, right? If this was my cell, I would definitely spend more time on it. But because this is just an example of ripped area that leaves the data set, I will not peruse it further. And just once again, remind that when it is leaving or entering the data set, the ripped area will get the backbone proofread label. So this one would get the backbone proofread label for BankBot, unlike the other ones. So very good. Let's take a look at one more of these types. So as you can see, we got the soma and some dendrites. This one is also leaving the data set. Very helpful to have the brain mesh or the peripheral nerve up. Also, you could scroll out and you can kind of see, oh, look, there's the fly. And this thing is, it's on its way. It's leaving or entering. So this, just like the one before, looks pretty good. Maybe there's a little bit extra over here. We don't know. But in general, seems good. Probably 95% complete. It is checking off that box where it leaves the data set or enters. So we will label this as backbone proofread. All right. And now for the final examples, I have a collection here. And these are from the optic lobes. As you can see, there's no peripheral nerve annotation point here, but even just looking at the brain mesh, this is quite torn up, and it's entering or leaving the data set from here. So you've probably seen a lot of cells like this. There's a variety, right? Sometimes they got a big cluster up there. Sometimes they got one up there and one down here. Sometimes they got their soma. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they do a little L shape. Sometimes they're sort of stockier. Just have this piece here. One thing to remember besides that these all would get the backbone proofread label. So all, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all 6 of these would receive the backbone proofread label. One thing to remember is if this segment doesn't look like not any of these, right? There could be ones that look somewhat different than these currently, but if it looks like there might be more, definitely explore in the 2D because these often do get segmented, right? Where like, say this longer part of the yellow one, that might just not be there. And if you just looked at this teal one and that yellow one, imagining this top part being missing, you'd say, oh, those are probably the same. So just be a little extra careful there. Take a little time, scroll through. I think I scrolled through this one earlier. I could not find anything, so this is probably good. There's a little bit right here. But I don't know if that's going to add too much. You know, if you do find something, go ahead and add it. And crucially, these are leaving or entering the data set, so we will be marking this type of ripped area as backbone proofread. Okay, so just to wrap it up, things like these two and this one over here that go into the central tear, these are ripped areas, but they are not marked backbone proofread. Things that leave the data set, like these here in the optic lobe or the other larger ones that we looked at earlier, those do get the backbone proofread label. All right. I hope that wasn't too repetitive. I hope it helped clarify the difference between the ripped area tags that get backbone proofread label and the ones that don't. And just another side note, the can't trace to somas also get the backbone proofread label. And that's it for this Neuroglancer proofreading protocol update. And thank you for your patience and thank you for your understanding. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.